Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a new episode of the Fintech Hunting Podcast. We have an incredible guest for you today. He is a dialer expert and guru. I should say extraordinaire. He's a technology evangelist. He specializes in borrower outreach. Please help me welcome Chad Gallison, Director of Call Center Technology at Anomaly Squared. Chad, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Michael. It's a pleasure. Good to see you.
It is great to see you. Thank you so much for joining. You have a wealth of knowledge and expertise in dialing, and I want to talk about that. In today's current market conditions, borrower outreach is critical. There's more competition. There's fluctuating rates. Lenders are now having to work harder to get the borrower's business. So start off by, first of all, what are some of the challenges lenders face when they try to do their own call center, and what are some of the benefits of outsourcing? And then we'll get into all of the cool technology and speed to lead and everything else.
Sure. Well, I was going to start with speed to lead.
Go ahead.
I think that's critical, and you know, for a company that is not a call center, and you know, for instance, a mortgage company or an insurance company, you have buyers that are going online. They're going on their phone. They're filling out a form, or they're clicking an advertisement that shows that they have interest. They're looking for what their new insurance rate might be, or what kind of mortgage rate they could get, or what they could get for a cash out, and they're interested in that moment. And where speed to lead is so critical is because that person may be on lunch. They may be on a break. And what we like to do is we like to call that customer before they even finish clicking the button, like we say. Like they click that button and they get a phone call. And the technology is there with the APIs that exist and CRMs, and everything works in milliseconds. And what it really comes down to is if you have people on your phones able to call them. And if you're an insurance company, say, for example, with 3 or 4 or 5 people in the shop, and you get 100, 200 leads that come in during the course of the day, you may not be able to get to them quickly. And that's where us and our call centers like us at Anomaly Squared, you know, we have an advantage that's what we do. Most of our employees are on the phone and making those phone calls as soon as they come in.
Chad, you talked about, and I love that phrase, you said things are happening in milliseconds. There was a recent study that I saw, I think it was through MIT, that said the chance of converting someone if you respond in 5 minutes versus 30 minutes is 21 times greater.
It makes a lot of sense.
5 minutes to 30 minutes. I mean, and there's some lenders that think, oh, I'll get back to them in a day or two, and that's fine. Day or two, they're gone. They've moved on. Like you said, they were on lunch. They were on a break. They just put their kids to bed, and they've got a half hour, an hour to get something done. And if people don't respond, so speed to lead, I totally get. And I'm a big believer in that responsiveness. And part of it is the consumer expectation now, right? I've talked about this before, yes, of that Amazon effect. I order a book at 9 this morning, and to be honest with you, I expect it by 3. And if I don't get it by 3, I'm kind of pissed off.
Very true.
That mindset is the same thing. And if that's for a $10 or a $20 book, I sure as heck would expect that if I'm looking at a $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 home, and somebody get back to me very quickly and be very responsive, and lenders struggle with that. So let's then we talked about speed to lead, and one of the advantages of outsourcing is, do you even have a team that's there ready to train? Talk about how hard it is to get a team built, have the right technology in place, being able to execute on that, especially if you're a mortgage company. You're not a typical call center.
No, absolutely not. And, you know, I've been working with Anomaly Squared and working with multiple dialing platforms and a lot of different technologies for over 9 years now. And I think a previous conversation said to you, I still learn things every week. I learn something new because things are always changing, and there's some things that the technology is so broad that you can't know all of it. And if you were a example I gave before, you know, a small mortgage company or an insurance company that has a few people, that's your job is insurance or mortgage, and that's what you know. And it's a it's an entirely different field, the call center side of things. And there's specific training and lots of experience that goes into what we've built and what we put together.
Well, and that experience is critical because, like you mentioned, whether you're an insurance agent, whether you're a loan officer, I think the mistake a lot of these companies make is, well, I'll just have my agents on Friday follow up and make calls, or I'll have my originators follow up each day. Well, if they're trying to close out loans, if they're working on insurance policies and everything like that, they may not get back for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, or it may be 2 or 3 days. Deal's gone, lost opportunity. And then secondly, and I want to touch upon this, we are a Fintech Hunting Podcast, so let's talk tech a little bit. I know you're a guru in dialer tech, but just using a plain phone system and thinking you can look at your CRM and somehow it's all magically going to work. Lead routing is critical, having integration with telepathy, having the right APIs. Talk about all the technology that a true call center like yourself can deliver versus someone just trying to make their phone system work at their current company.
Sure. How much time do we have? Well, we start very basically, with a dialing platform. Just talking about straight calling. There's tons of them out there, and I think the really important thing about those dialing platforms is the programming that goes into it. So there's a certain amount of time, there's that fine line between calling just the right amount of time and just the right number of times, and then harassing your customer. And the other thing, that if you have individuals that are using a standard phone system, you can't really fine grain those times of the day that you're calling. You're just calling them when you get to them. And with our dialing platform, we're going to receive a lead, we're going to call it immediately. And then we can set the time. We can decide, okay, do we want to call them in 2 minutes? Do we want to call them in 2 hours? Do we want to call them tomorrow? And all of that can be done programmatically. And then you're hands off. Once it's programmed, we have agents on the phone, customer service representatives ready and waiting. And when it's time for that lead to be dialed again, the dialer does it, and you don't have to worry about it once it's in there.
So let's take it a step further, because I know you and I have had this discussion before. It's now no longer just dialing, right? It's outreach with a lot of different methodologies, texting, emailing, calling, and that being able to program in those frequencies with those different communication channels is critical. So talk to me a little bit about how you guys kind of program some of that in, so it's not just all calling, but it's really outreach so that you can have better results.
Certainly. So, of course, yes, when I first started with Anomaly Squared, we just called. And once SMS started coming out after a couple of years, it wasn't necessarily received well by customers. Texting was meant to, call your mate or your son or daughter, text your son or daughter, see where they are, or communicating amongst friends and families. And once we started sending out business-related SMS, it sometimes was well received and sometimes it wasn't. But then you fast forward a couple of years and it's almost the standard. Most people want a text message. It's much easier. They don't want to talk to anybody. And we've always kept that human element in mind. What do we want to receive? How do we want to handle things? And also, well, let's be frank, how does the generation that's younger than us want things to go?
Correct. And I think having the flexibility and the technology to understand those different audience needs and being able to program it in, there's a lot more that goes into it than just saying, let's call when it's convenient. No, strategically, you guys look at data and analytics and analyze what's the best frequency. Okay, we called within the first 2 minutes. We didn't get them. We're going to call within 24 hours. We're going to text 12 hours after that. Most companies don't have time to track all of that stuff, but you guys do.
No.
And that's the power of, think, looking at being able to outsource and go to someone who specializes in call centers. And I think the other thing people have to realize is call centers are no longer, when we're talking mortgage, no longer just for consumer direct. When COVID hit, retail originators had to really start rethinking and saying, well, how am I going to outreach to my borrowers? They're scared to come into the branch, or the branch isn't even open. I'm working from home.
For sure.
Being able to, do call routing, being able to have a company like yours really manage those leads, making sure they're responsive, is critical across all those lending channels. Talk to me about contact rates, right? That's another challenge that people have. Should they be calling? Should they not be calling? Do they have the authority to call? What kind of contact rates? Walk me through that, because I know you're an expert in this area.
So, yeah, I kind of touched about that earlier, right? So when you get that lead initially on a live lead that's just filled out a form or requested a call back on, say, Facebook, they're ready. They're not working. They're not busy at that moment, right? So we want to get them as soon as possible. But the other thing is, okay, so we have to think about the different scenarios and what are people doing? And they may not be available. They may have just filled that form and now they have to get back to work. So what we try to do with our dial, what we try to program in there is a certain amount of time between dials and text messages and emails that we're attempting contact at different times of the day. And even if we're calling leads one time a day for, say, 3 to 5 days, we'll change the time of the day that we call. Try to find a better time when someone's available and free. And the SMS has been wonderful for that, because, we can attempt a phone call and then follow up with a text message that said, hey, we tried to call you. Give us a call back when you're free. And we get a lot of response from that. And then when those people call back based off of those text messages, there's intent. And those are really, really good leads or calls that are coming in.
I think one of the other critical areas, and I know you're the tech guru, so we're not going to go too deep in compliance, but managing all of the do not call lists, do not email, do not send text, getting authorization and all of that. Talk to me a little bit about the importance of managing that and using the technology and the systems and your expertise to do that, compared to someone trying to just run that in their own company that may not have the insights and the expertise that's needed.
Yeah, that's an entirely new ballgame that's developed over the last 9 to 10 years with TCPA rules that have changed, and it's very difficult to manage. And that's why someone like us at Anomaly Squared, we have people that we get the monthly, weekly newsletters. We keep up with that. Every single state has, not all of them, but many of them have very different dialing times that are allowed. Some of them you can dial on Sunday, some you can't. Some have different restrictions on holidays, and it's all very hard to manage, and it can be a full-time thing, to make sure that your dialer, and that's the beautiful thing about using a dialing software with someone like us that focuses on that. That's exactly what we're focused on. And we can program that in, set it and forget it, and not have to worry, other than to keep up with the laws as they continue to change.
Such good insight, because I think that's where a lot of people get themselves into trouble, right? Hey,
absolutely, we
need to generate more leads, so let's have our loan officers outreach, let's have our agents outreach. And they don't know all the rules, the regulations.
Right.
They don't know when they can call, when they can't call. They don't know the frequency. They don't know the permission. So outsourcing it makes a ton of sense, to have someone that's all they do. Tell me, we've only got a few more minutes, and you always share so many great insights. I could talk to you for hours about this. What are some of the new things taking place at Anomaly Squared? What's some of the things coming down the pike that you're most excited about?
It never stops. There's constantly new technologies. We have some dialing platforms that we've used for several years, and they're steady. They work well, but there's always something new coming out. There's third-party applications in terms of SMS and email that are doing things. There's other new CRM platforms that are fully integrating with dialing platforms, and we're starting to see that full all-in-one, all-encompassing dialing SMS omni-channel platform that is being developed, and it's taken years to get that all together, where one agent can sit down and do all of it. at one time. They can be getting chat messages and text messages and sending emails and making phone calls, and that's coming together, and it's exciting because it's really starting to work really, really well. And it's hard to, all the things that we talk about, it's hard to put all of that into one. And something that's truly omni-channel, it takes a long time to develop, and it's exciting. And, the other things that they refer to as, computer learning or AI, that conversational AI is really exciting platform that we're starting to delve into as it's becoming really good and really effective.
Analyzing calls and loan officer effectiveness, or who's on the phone,
absolutely.
and what message are they saying. I think there's a ton of applications there. Chad, if somebody wants to find more about Anomaly Squared and some of the incredible things you guys are doing as it relates to outreach and call center, what's the best way that they can get a hold of you?
We have, you can go to anomalisquared.com. We're also very active on Facebook, Anomaly Squared. You can go there, and it might even be a quicker response. But our social media team is constantly on the lookout, and we're always willing to talk.
Chad, you have a wealth of knowledge and expertise. I can't thank you enough for being a guest on this episode of the Fintech Hunting Podcast.
My pleasure. Thank you, Michael.